Good afternoon, all. It's Michael, Kate, and Sally back again to talk to you about leadership and organizations. And it's a short broadcast for you this week. We're just in this moment where there seems to be a lot of hope in the world. We have the possibility of a new vaccine. We have lots of political changes happening in the world. And we just wanted to do a very quick video and share some tips, some ideas that are floating around in our heads. So straight over to you, Kate. What's top of your mind in terms of tips and hints for people?
Well, what we've been talking about is how prevalent emotions are at the moment, and they're changing daily with the news feeds that we are all aware of. And I think in organisations, if we don't have really clear boundaries and norms around what we're sharing in terms of our own emotions, we can end up being quite damaging and destructive because we might suppress our emotions. So I've been thinking about how do we make it's safe for people to be heard, so that they can process what they're thinking and as things change from a week to week basis.
And what do you recommend managers do to create that space?
Well, there's been some quite interesting ideas I've heard from people. So I've heard one group in the NHS have had this idea of having a wobble room, where they've created a space where people can go if they're just feeling as though things are a bit overwhelming or they're feeling emotional. They can go into a safe space and people will check in on them and chat to them. So that's one idea. And there's lots of other things that I've heard people doing. Yeah.
What about you, Sally? What's your tip and technique for the week?
But particularly from a leadership perspective, what I would encourage leaders to do is to be really mindful that it's important to check in with people and not for it to come across as that they're checking up. I know that managers working in this really virtual world are really mindful not to appear to be micromanaging people within their team. But I think if you've got the opportunity to have a one-to-one and you're open enough to be vulnerable yourself about how you are feeling at the moment, perhaps what emotions you're going through, how tough you might be finding it, it's a great opportunity for you to ask that question of people in terms of, and how are you managing at the moment? How are things for you? So check in, don't check up. That's important, I think.
Okay, so a safe space to share and have emotions, checking in, not checking up. And I guess the thing that I've picked up massively this week from two separate clients in very different industry is that there's a bit of complacency around as well, that we're through this. We don't have to be doing all these things we were doing, that things are getting back to normal. And I'm really, really clear in my mind that this is going to go on for quite a while yet, even if we do have this wonder vaccine that was announced yesterday. We're going to be in some form of control and constriction for quite a few months, and people do need, as Sally says, to be checked in on, but also we as leaders need to be doing some of those things we were doing back in March and April, of creating those team spaces, of creating that environment where people are cared for and felt that they have a purpose, but also that they're valued. And it worries me that we've just become a little complacent. I had an example of a manager this week who hadn't checked in on anybody on his team in 10 days. And I thought, oh my God, I'd be doing it every day just to make sure everything's okay, just to be saying hello, because you'd be doing that if we were in the office. Okay, anything else from us?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've noticed as well is the importance of listening, isn't it? And allowing people just to express themselves. And there doesn't have to be a solution or any judgment. It's just listening and not interrupting. So that's something that managers and team members can do, is just allow people to express themselves, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And a final thought from me is on emotional contagion. Just reminding leaders really that emotions are contagious. So encouraging people to have some optimism and some realistic optimism, but hope for the future is so important. Because if you get yourself into that negative spiral of negative emotions, whilst as Kate said, it is important to be able to share them. What we don't want to do is to encourage them and wallow in them, because that can be unhelpful. So really thinking about how you can encourage a more optimistic outlook amongst the team is really important.
Great. Folks, we're going to leave it on that this week. We'll catch you all again next week. I have a feeling we'll be back to the subject of hope. Take care.